Alrighty, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is April the 30th. It is a Thursday today. Yesterday, we did have, of course, earnings in the after hours with a lot of big tech reporting. We did have FOMC as well. No rate cuts, which came in in line with expectations, which we'll talk about here. As you can see, the overall markets, we are gravitating towards the upside back up in towards our all-time highs here. We had that gap fill as well. So the markets are pushing higher here with Google kind of leading the way higher. Meta, that one ended up dropping about 7% in the after hours. So yeah, decent amount of things to talk about coming to this morning, especially with the markets gapping up here. A lot of setups now forming here as well. Intel, one of the ones that we talked about yesterday, that was probably the best trade, up about that one was up about 12%, almost hit 100. I think that actually hit 100 in the after hours. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Let me pull up the economic calendar and let's get started. Okay, so yeah, coming into today, we do have some more red folder news that is going to be at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Starting off with advanced GDP, the game plan for today is we'll basically go over some of the charts that we're looking for and then wait for 8:30 to hit, and then we'll basically go from there. We have the advanced GDP, core PC price index. We also have the unemployment cost here as well, and the unemployment claim. So a lot of red folder news right at 8:30. As I mentioned, we'll go on to some charts and then we'll wait for this to drop and then develop our game plan from there. And then for tomorrow, we do have ISM manufacturing PMI. If we go into the earnings calendar, as I mentioned, we have a bunch of earnings yesterday. We have a bunch of earnings today here as well, specifically on the memory names. So for today, SNDK, Western Digital, a lot of the semiconductors plus memory have been leading the markets higher. So this is going to be a great thing to keep an eye out for specifically. And then if we do have Apple as well after close. I know yesterday we'll kind of talk about a bunch of these earnings, but we had Microsoft fairly neutral, Amazon original and drop. This one's at all-time highs. Meta is the one that ended up dropping in the after hours, and then of course Google up about 6%. So this is the one that's at all-time highs, and this one's continuing higher here as well. Qualcomm, that's something you can go look at. That one's up a nice amount as well that we could take a look at coming into market open. Okay, so that's what we have yesterday, and then as I mentioned for today, Apple, SNDK, Western Digital, something to keep an eye out for. Now let's head straight into the charts. Starting off with the SPY. Let me grab some water here before I get started. So starting off here with the SPY, let's head on to the daily time frame. So as you can see here for the SPY, if we're looking at this very briefly, as you can see here, SPY weekly time frame above our previous all-time highs, bullish. If you look at this on the daily time frame here as well, bullish. Higher lows are being built on the daily as well. If you go into the hourly time frame, a lot more consolidation the past week and a half. As you can see, we end up having this nice bounce, right? Buyers stepping in. Coming into this week, the key levels that we have marked out is at 712. Earlier into the week, we end up having that nice break and retest of the 712, and you can see got back underneath it yesterday. A couple of rejections here off that 712, and of course, once we got above it here in the after hours and pre-market, now we're seeing a potential push back up in towards the highs. So the key levels that we have on SPY coming into market open really is that 712 key level. Next level that we do have, of course, is going to be that all-time highs, 715. So this is our all-time highs here in the pre-market. This is also our all-time highs here in the actual market hours. We have a couple other levels, which is that 717. But really coming to market open here, we're just going to draw at the 712 level. As you can see, the SPY is above it. If we do want to see upside coming into market open here, you have two scenarios: the bounce play here off that 712 for buyers to step in for the continued pushback towards the upside, or now what we like to see is the break above 715, hold above that 715 for that continued push up and towards that 717. So this is what we have on the SPY coming into market open. Just based off of intraday price action, we are leaning more towards the upside. The higher time frame is still very much bullish, right? Intraday now above our previous day highs as well. There is a possible short scenario, which is going to be off that 715, which we'll talk about. All right, this is basically our gap fill area. This is also our Monday's highs of this week. We could see, right, potential rejection here off that 715 and push right back down in towards our 712. So that is something to keep in mind. We could see a mean reversion, right? Earnings lows all the way back down in towards that 709 here. So this is something to pay attention to if, let's say, we do have big sellers that step in off that 715, sorry, we could look for potential mean reversion back towards the downside. So open to playing both sides, of course, leaning more towards the upside. But if sellers do want to step in, that is something that we can be looking for. If we go on to the ES, very similar thing here on the higher time frames, right? As you can see here on the daily chart, we're essentially just basing above our previous all-time highs. If you look at this from a bar by bar perspective, we talked about this is our first technically daily candle close underneath, and now you can see the momentum slowing down just a little bit here for the ES. But if you do want to see any sort of continuation higher, the reclaim is necessary. So the level that we have marked out is going to be this 7180. If we can reclaim back above, as you can see right here, break and retest, continuation, broke back underneath, a little bit of rejection yesterday here in the after hours, of course, with some earnings. Try breaking back above, but now this could be our key level still, right? 7180. If we can reclaim back above that level, we can see that push back up in towards our all-time highs here on the ES. Levels that I have marked out coming into today personally is going to be that 7180. Other levels that I do have marked out here now is going to be that 72, basically that 7200. As you can see, there's multiple touches here in the after hours. Next level for the ES is really going to be that all-time highs that we do have marked out. So coming into today here for the ES, what we're going to keep an eye out on is the 7200. Longs above our 7200 are in play for continuation towards the upside, towards that all-time highs. Another possible scenario is going to be the bounce play here. That's going to be off that 7180. This is our high that we created. This is basically the high that we had from yesterday. Of course, we broke above it here in the after hours, but in the actual market hours, 7180 is going to be key for continuation towards upside. So this is what we have on the SPY along with the ES coming into market open. If you go into the QQQ, you can see this one's actually at all-time high. So this one is leading the markets back towards the upside. If we look at this from a weekly perspective, bullish above our previous all-time highs. So far, the weekly candle is forming bullish here as well. If we're looking at this on the daily chart, well above our previous all-time highs, as you can see, along with higher lows are being built on the daily as well. And then if we go into the hourly time frame, the key levels that we have marked out is we had a couple key levels. We had our 656 here on the Qs, which so far you can see is being defended. Other levels that we have marked out was our 662, along with our all-time highs, which is our 664. Currently, we're right above that here in the pre-market. So as you can see, this is our all-time highs in the actual market hours. Currently, we're above it. As you can see here, 664 here in the pre-market. We're also above our previous day highs as well. So for the Qs coming into market open, what we're going to be looking for is the hold above 664. As long as you can hold above 664, we are going to be leaning more towards the upside. Another possible scenario, let's say we come all the way back down, right? I would still be bullish as long as you can maintain above our previous day highs. But the best case scenario here now is going to be 664 hold for continuation up in towards 667 here and above. So coming to market open, we're going to maintain a bullish stance above our 664 previous all-time highs here on the Qs. As you can see, buyers are stepping in here currently in the pre-market. Only way we're looking to short the Qs, in my opinion, shorting the Qs is going to be a little bit more difficult. It would have to be underneath our 664. We're going to have a very small gap fill towards the downside. That is a potential scenario. Only if we can get back underneath that 664. And let's say if sellers stepped in very aggressively right off the bat, then I'll be interested. But as I mentioned, higher time frame is bullish. right? Intraday is bullish here as well. Of course, leaning more towards the upside, only interested if we showed some relative weakness intraday. But that's going to be our key level coming into market open, 664 here on the NQ. As for the QQQ key levels that we personally have marked out is going to be this 27,450. As you can see yesterday, the key levels that we have marked out is really this gap that we have created. We end up filling this gap after earnings. And as you can see, we're currently actually above that level. So coming into market open here, let's first start off on the daily time frame. As you can see here for the NQ, we're fairly bullish. Let me actually just readjust that. As you can see here, every single dip so far is being bought up. This was the first daily candle that closed underneath its previous candle low, but you can see momentum is slowing down here on the daily chart. But as you can see, higher lows are still very much well being built on the NQ. If you go into the hourly time frame, let's turn back on the electronic trading hours. Yesterday, we end up having that nice push up in towards our all-time highs in the after hours. Levels that we have marked out now is going to be that 27,450. So this is our actual market, all-time highs in the market hours. Currently, we are trying to reclaim back above that level. So if we do want to see longs today, maintain longs above our 27,450. If we maintain above this level, I am going to be bullish for a continuation towards the upside. If we broke underneath this level, then we could see a potential mean reversion back down in towards our previous day highs along with this gap fill that we do have. So that's going to be the key level coming into market open here, 27,450 on the NQ. And of course, for the QQQ, the key levels that we do have is going to be our all-time highs, or now our previous all-time highs, 664. All right, with that being said, let's head on to the SMH here now. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can also drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below here as well. Alrighty, so yeah, for the SMH, this is the one that has been leading the markets back towards the highs. As you can see, currently not quite back at our all-time highs as of yet. For the SMH, this one's still very much bullish here on the higher time frames, right? Higher lows are being built. Every single daily candle, or sorry, the daily chart, higher lows, every single gap that's being filled is continuing towards the upside. In this case, for the SMH, what we like to see is a move back up and towards our all-time highs. Very similar chart to AMD, which we'll talk about. But for the SMH, this one, pushing back in the after hours. Currently, key levels that we do have marked out is going to be that 497. And we also have our 510 marked out, which is our all-time highs on the SMH. So coming into market open, 2 levels on the SMH, previous day highs, along with our all-time highs. If we want to see continuation above our all-time highs for a push towards the upside, another possible scenario is going to be the bounce play here off our previous day highs, pull back longs right off our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside. So this is what we have on the SMH, right? This one's still very much bullish. Similar thing to the rest of the tickers as well. Pretty much bullish on a lot of these in major indices. For the SMH, if we do reject off that previous all-time highs level, we can see a potential move back down in towards that previous day close. So this is what we have for the SMH coming to market open. As for the IWM, this one's still very much bullish here on the higher time frames, right? It kind of broke on underneath this period of consolidation, came back down in towards that 270. What you would like to see on the IWM, reclaim back above that 273 for a push back up and towards that 278. So this is what we have for the IWM, right? Kind of this consolidation, right? Manipulation and potential move back towards the upside on this one. So that's what we have on the major indices coming into market open. As I mentioned, we do have about 10 more minutes until a bunch of red folder news here. So I'll go over some charts and then we will develop our game plan from there. All right, for the Tesla chart, Tesla really hasn't been doing too much as of late. Ever since we've had earnings, a lot of these names, the indices have been pushing back towards the upside. Tesla kind of just been consolidating, specifically this week here as well, right underneath that 380. So a lot more consolidation on this ticker. If we do want to see continuation back towards the upside, we've talked about this numerous times. Nothing's changed. Above 380 continuation, underneath that 380, push back down in towards that 360 here and below. If you go on to the 15-minute time frame, a similar thing, right? Just a lot of consolidation this week. Look at how tight of a range Tesla's had the past couple of sessions. You can just draw out this whole general area, 372 to your 385. If you want to see some upside bounce play here off that 372 for continuation higher, or now longs above our previous day highs for a pushback towards the upside here as well. Underneath that 372, we can see continuation down in towards that 366. So let's keep an eye out on our previous day lows here on Tesla. That is going to be key, 372 here on the higher time frames. All right, let's talk about some of the semiconductors here, starting off with NVIDIA. This one is still very much bullish here on the higher time frames. Currently, this weekly chart, right, has not closed as of yet, but you can see some sellers are stepping in right above our previous all-time highs. Nice trade towards the upside once we did close above that 195, but sellers are stepping in just a little bit here off that around that 210 level here on NVIDIA. If you look at this on the daily time frame, what we'd like to see for any sort of continuation back towards the upside is the close back above our previous all-time highs, and we can see this next leg towards the upside here on NVIDIA. So that's going to be the key level here, is that previous all-time highs. The key levels on the hourly time frame, which we do have marked out, is going to be that 212. So that 212 here is our previous all-time highs. So mark out this general area. As you can see, the day previous, right, tried reclaiming back above yesterday, a little bit of rejection here, pre-market, another touch here as well. If you do want to see NVIDIA continuation above our 212, push back towards the upside. If we reject off this level, then we could be looking for buyers to step in here off that 208 for that pushback towards the upside here as well. But 212 is going to be that main level on NVIDIA. I am still leaning more towards the upside, even though we are at all-time highs, right? Higher time frames are still bullish, right? We're still holding key levels. Reclaim back above can shoot this back towards our 214, along with that 216 here on the higher time frame. So keep an eye out on NVIDIA above 212 coming into market open. As for AMD, this one, let's go back onto the daily chart. AMD, very bullish. As you can see here on the daily chart, the only thing we had was that gap that we created, once we end up gapping up last week, end up pushing back towards the downside. As you can see, buyers are stepping in very nicely. Let's see if we can get that move back up and towards our all-time highs here on AMD. So key levels that we do have marked out is our 336, and we also have our 352, which is our all-time highs here. So for AMD coming into market open, I'm actually just going to readjust this level. We can mark this out, previous day highs. We can mark this down in towards that 335. So this is the key levels that we have for AMD coming into market open. We have our previous all-time highs, along with our previous day highs here as well. If we do want to see some upside on AMD, right, what we can be looking for today is that previous day high retest on AMD 340 for that continued push back up and towards our all-time highs. Really, this is the only scenario that I do like for some upside. Potential like opening range break here as well for a push up in towards that 352 is in play here as well. But for AMD, going to be one of our main watches for that reclaim setup. Back above our 340. Similar thing here with NVIDIA. We'll keep an eye out on some of the semis coming into market open. But AMD looks good above 340 for that pushback up and towards all-time highs. Apple, this one does have earnings. We'll just be a little bit more patient and wait for after earnings on this one. You'll see a lot of the names, as I mentioned, the moves will happen once the earnings does take place. And of course, the IV is going to be elevated beforehand, so you don't really want to trade before earnings. As for Apple, earnings is going to be tonight, so we'll take a look at it. As for Google, this one, nice push up in towards our all-time highs. Nice pop up in towards 380 here now, up about 8% on Google towards the upside. Solid gap up on this ticker. Key levels that we do have marked out is now just going to be our pre-market highs along with our after hours highs. So this is going to be the key level here on Google, 372. After hours highs, if we do want to see continuation, we need to see the dip down in towards that 372, hold above that level for continuation higher. Day one earnings plays aren't as ideal just because the IV is going to be elevated. If you do want to look for a potential dip and rip, you want to see what's called an IV flush. Dip down right off the bat, and then you want to look for that first dip to get bought up for continuation. If price moves higher right off the bat, you definitely don't want to trade it. The only way you can trade these names after you're having a big pop up is if it dips first and you look to buy that first flush. So for Google, 372 is going to be key. As for Microsoft, not really too much has happened. Key levels that we do have marked out is our 432 along with our 408, a little bit more consolidation in the past couple of sessions. As you can see, earnings high, earnings low, basically eclipse this whole range. Now we're basically right in between the middle of the range, so fairly neutral, only down about 0.1% here on Microsoft. So just keep an eye out on those key levels, right? 432 along with our 412. Meta's the one that ended up dropping here, down about 8% in the pre-market. As you can see, key levels that we have marked out is at 680. It does seem like we're coming back down in towards the low of the range, which is our 580 on the higher time frame. So for Meta, now we're kind of in between its middle of the range. We can see a push back down in towards the bottom of the range, which is our 600 key psych. Key levels that we do have marked out, I guess for Meta, now we're going to have to mark out key levels. We can mark this out, which is going to be that 580. We are a little bit farther away from our 580. Other levels that we can have marked out as well is going to be our after hours lows, 625. If you do want to see downside rejection here off that 625, pop and fade for that continued pushback towards the downside. Amazon, this one is at all-time highs here as well, up about 3% in the pre-market. Amazon, nice break and retest here on the daily, right off that 260. As you can see, buyers are stepping in. Of course, we do have earnings, but nice hold so far of your 260 along with our previous all-time highs here on Amazon. Key levels that we do have marked out, at least for today, is going to be that 260, 264. Other levels that we could have marked out here now is going to be our after hours highs. So basically this level that we do have. So we can just mark this out as a whole general area if we'd like here on the 15-minute time frame. But really it's their 268. Previous day highs, multiple touches from the day before. Earnings kind of high here in the after hours. And now you can see a touch in the pre-market. So for Amazon, what you like to see here is maintain above our 268 for continuation back up in towards that 278 here and above on this one. And then for Netflix, this one just kind of consolidating right at the lows. Not too much has happened ever since we've had earnings. Gap down, and now you can see right back into a key level of support. You do want to see a couple buyers step in here off that 92 if you can, potential mean reversion back up in towards our 100 key psych. We have this gap here as well. If we break underneath it, we can see this gap fill back towards the downside. All right, with that being said, we do have 8:30 coming up here in just a second. We have some red folder news to talk about. If you guys do have any charts, as I mentioned so far, you can see the SPY and Qs is pushing back towards the upside here in the pre-market. But if you guys do have any charts or any tickers you'd like me to go over, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate it if you guys drop a like. See if we can get to 200 likes. And of course, if you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below here as well. Okay, so we just had some numbers come out. Let's take a look at them. Advanced GDP numbers forecasted 2.2%, actual 2%, came in a little bit lower than expected. Core PCE came in line with expectations, 0.3%. Unemployment cost index, 0.9, forecasted 0.8. Advanced GDP price index, 3.6. 3.8 was forecasted, and then for the unemployment claims did come in lower than expectations, 213, and we had 189. So as you can see for the overall markets, we're basically back at all-time highs here. As you can see for the SPY and Qs, similar thesis, right? All these major indices are back at all-time highs. For the SPY, right at our all-time highs here in the pre-market. And then for the Qs, we're above our all-time highs here, which is that 664. So coming to market open, as I mentioned, the key levels is just going to be our previous all-time highs. We're going to maintain a bullish stance in the markets as long as we're above our all-time highs levels. SPY, similar thing. What I would like to see is above our all-time highs if we're going to maintain a bullish stance in the SPY and Qs. If we reject off this level, let's say within the first let's say 30 minutes, we end up having a pretty sharp rejection, then we can see a potential mean reversion here in the markets. Where I'm not going to be overly biased just because we had earnings, we had FOMC yesterday. A lot of times the big moves do happen after FOMC, and with the markets being fairly overextended, we're consolidating here. We could see a potential pullback today, so that's not off the table, right? I am going to lean more towards the upside, of course, in the pre-market and coming into market open. But let's say if sellers do want to step in right off the bat, then I wouldn't be opposed to looking for a potential trade back towards the downside. So that's the game plan for today here on the SPY and Qs. As for some of the main charts, as I talked about, NVIDIA, AMD, still ones that I'm very much interested for continuation. The rest of the tickers, like we'll keep an eye out on Google. Day one earnings setup, as I mentioned, I don't really like as much just because the IV is going to be fairly elevated. So Google is the only one that I do like. We'll have to wait for an IV flush if we do want to trade this one off that 372. Besides that, there's actually a lot of these other tickers that I do like now, which we'll talk about here in a second. As for Palantir, this one broke underneath that 140. Now we're just right at this 140 key level. If I'm not mistaken, this one does have earnings coming up fairly soon. So yeah, Palantir, really not too much to talk about. We'll just wait for an after earnings on that ticker. AVGO, let's keep an eye out on AVGO coming to market open. Higher lows are being built. Bounce off our key level of support. If we can reclaim back above our previous all-time highs here in this gap fill, we can see a move back up and towards our all-time highs. Keep an eye out on AVGO coming into market open. Key level is going to be that 415. If you can get above our 415, we can see a continuation up and towards 420 and potentially 430. Another possible scenario is going to be that bounce play here off our previous day highs, higher lows here off that 405. So two scenarios here on AVGO. Keep an eye out on that one coming to market open. MU, let's keep an eye out on MU coming to market open here. Key level is going to be our all-time highs, potential flat top forming here as well. Longs above our 530 in play. Another possible scenario above 520, continuation towards the upside here as well. If you're looking at this one on the hourly time frame, right, we have another kind of flat top forming. As for MU, nice break, retest, continuation. And then for this one, another potential flat top here on MU. What we could be looking for, as you can see, higher lows are being built. Break above 530, continuation towards the upside. So let's keep an eye out on MU coming to market open above our previous day highs is going to be key on this one. I do like SNDK, another one that's pushing towards upside. Of course, this one does have earnings tonight, so you're going to be more hands off. But as you can see, very clear daily time frame. Every single dip is being bought up on this one. Intel was one of the main ones we talked about yesterday. Potential flat top forming in the markets. Key levels that we had was our 87. Nice break and retest above that for continuation here. Ended up having a retest right above our 87. Buyers stepped in. Nice continuation towards the upside. Now for Intel, we haven't quite hit 100. That's our main key psychological level. Key levels that we do have now is going to be that previous day highs. If we can get that previous day high retest, that would be absolutely fantastic, right? Pull back longs off our previous day highs for continuation up and towards that 100 key psych. We'll see if this potentially presents itself today. Another possible scenario is going to be now just a break above our pre-market highs, above this 98 for a push up in towards our after hours highs, along with our 100 key cycle level here as well. So Intel very bullish on the higher time frames, very close to our 100 key psych. If you can get pullback longs on this one, we can be looking for that low risk off our previous day highs here on this ticker. WDC recently had earnings, right? Nice push towards the upside. Actually ended up coming back for that break and retest off that 416, which was fairly nice. And now we're back at this 436. So longs above 436 here is in play on WDC. If we go into a few other tickers here like Hood, some of the retail brokers end up dropping. Hood, big gap down. Of course, this did have earnings. Not as ideal. You would have wanted to see, at least for longs, the hold above our 82 and a pop. This one gapping down here right in towards our previous level of support, really the area that we broke out from. So Hood, really not too much to talk about here. So similar to SoFi, almost exact same sector and chart as well, gap down in towards really our key level support here. So be a little bit more cautious on these tickers. Next level all the way down in towards that 15. Wouldn't be surprised if you get that trade down in towards that 15. Similar thing here with Hood. Wouldn't be surprised if we get consolidation and then potential trade down in towards really 68 here and below on this one. As for a few other tickers, just briefly go over some other ones. Sorry, stream should be good back here now as well. If you do have any issues, you guys can just refresh your stream. But CRWV looks good for these higher lows for pushback towards the upside. We have a bunch of these other names, right? UNH looks really good. We talked about that break above 360 a couple days ago. Nice continuation towards the upside. Couple other tickers that are still holding up, like Marvel, right? Building up higher lows. ARM looks fairly solid. Potential retest of our previous all-time highs here, right? This one looks fairly solid, right? Keep an eye on ARM. Retest above our 180 multiple touches. This is a textbook break and retest here on the weekly time frame. So ARM looks good. Right, keep an eye out on this one. This one does have room back towards the highs, break back above 205, continuation back towards the upside. But yeah, besides that, at least for today, briefly go over my game plan once more, but key levels that we're going to have marked out is going to be that previous all-time highs. Longs above our 664 for continuation. SPY, a little bit of reaction, but as I mentioned, above our 715 is going to be key on the SPY. Coming to market open, we'll keep an eye out on NVIDIA above 212, AMD above our previous day highs, Google potential pullback longs back in towards our 372, and then we'll keep an eye out on MU. Right, flat top break here. This is one of my favorite ones coming into market open above our 530 continuation. SNDK above our previous day highs, but this one, of course, does have earnings. And then Intel, potential pullback longs off our 95 key psych. But yeah, that is going to be it for me today. I'm going to get ready for market open here now. We do have some more things, right, with earnings tonight with Apple and a couple memory names, so that's going to be fairly key. So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Hope you guys did enjoy that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. All right, take care everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.